Welcome to my channel Limelight Leaks. Please share and subscribe and hit the bell icon for new updates. He was the crazy guy of rock music, the Prince of Darkness, and one of rock's most famous people. But behind all the wild stuff and stories was a garage. And when Ozzy Osbourne died, what people found inside, his cool cars, personal notes, and one car, tied to sadness, told a story louder than any speaker. This is the secret story about Ozzy's final hideaway. On July 22, 2025, the world lost Morathon, just a rock star. It lost Apperson, who stood for crazy fun, being real. I'm never pretending to be someone else. Ozzy Osbourne, the Prince of Darkness imps, died at the age of 7. 6 News shows went wild. People said nice things from every part of the world. Funds gathered at Black Sabbath wall paintings in Birmingham, held candle services in Hollywood, and played Crazy Train from their cars to honor a man who lived loud, loved without holding back, and somehow stayed alive. But as the news spread, and his words kept coming, there was one place that stayed completely quiet. Ozzy's private garage. Unlike his music, this place had never been in the spotlight. Hidden behind the gates of his Los Angeles house, locked up for years during his sickness, this garage had become more like a myth, fancy mething real. Not even close friends or longtime band members could say what was inside. It hadn't been opened. In overt years, it was the one place Ozzy had truly kept to himself. And now, with his death, the heavy door opened up. Not just the actual door, but his feelings too. What was behind it wasn't just a car collection. It was like a time machine of Ozzy's art. There were stories here left in oil marks, crumpled papers, dust-covered car dashboards. Each car inside wasn't just bought. It was lived in, cried in, sung in, and in some case hidden away for very personal reasons. This wasn't the garage of a rock god trying to show off. This was the safe place. A broken genius. A man who saw cars, not just as toys, what they found inside. Would shock even longtime fans, and some of it would never be shown to everyone. Ozzy Osbourne's love for cars began long before fancy cars and luxury. It started in Birmingham's dirty streets, where staying alive came first, and teenage rebellion ran wild. As a young man in working-class England, Ozzy didn't learn to drive in a nice driver's education class. He learned from watching, copying, and sometimes stealing. His first ride was probably someone else's. Friends from back then have sat the borrowed beat-up vans and junky cars just to escape the gray skies and factory walls. To Ozzy, driving meant one thing: freedom. His music journey began with Black Sabbath. Cars followed right behind. Beat-up cars, vans with no heat, can't wait for cold, carry equipment from bar to bar. But after Paranoid became popular, so did Themoni. And Ozzy's taste, though never fancy, became famous. His first big purchase was a blacked-out Rolls-Royce Silver Shadow, which heck-rashed within a year. It was something that would happen again and again. It's fast living, faster cars, and the crazy chow stat came with both. Ozzy wasn't into cars to show off. He didn't collect them to impress reporters. He loved them like he loved music. Loud, powerful, and dangerously close to going out of control. He often said he felt more peace inside a car than on stage. A garage became his second backstage, a place to breathe. In those early years, Sharon tried to help him build a relic collection. But even she said Ozzy would fall in love with a car and then destroy it within months. Stu there were a few he kept. The ones that had stories, feelings, or memories attached. And over time, those stories would end up parked quietly behind that locked garage door, forgotten by most, but never by Ozzy. At the height of his fame, Osbourne had a garage that could compete with King's, not just in how much it cost, but in history. Inside were dozens of cars from British luxury to American muscle cars, each representing a chapter in his life. A Rolls-Royce Phantom 5 painted in deep midnight black with red velvet seats. A Ferrari 456 GT given to him after finishing one of his solo tours. A custom Dodge Demon tuned for crazy horsepower but never taken to a track. And most famously, a Jaguar XJ220, a rare super-fast car of the 1990s, so wickedly fast, it reportedly scared Ozzy too much to drive it. Each car wasn't just a prize. It was a timestamp The Aston Martin from the Blizzard of Oz tour. The Bentley Habat, the day Jack was born. Even a beat-up old Volkswagen camper van, which Ozzy refused to let go because Zeke reminded him of his earliest days with Sharon. But over time, these cars become more than just transportation. They became anchors, helping Ozzy hold into memories in a life otherwise lost in chaos. Yet, strangely enough, he never shout them off. No magazine pictures, no open invites. Ozzy was very private about his garage. Only a few friends had ever seen the full collection. Even fewer were allowed to take photos. According to one friend, he didn't collect to look cool. He collected for comfort. In interviews, Ozzy hinted at the emotional weight each car carried. Some people see a car, he once said. I see 10 years, a mistake, a miracle, or a goodbye. By the early 2000s, Ozzy's health problems became more often, more serious. After decades of drug and alcohol problems, the Prince of Darkness found himself trumped in his own mind and body, fighting Parkinson's nerve damage. And the results of his legendary wild living. The garage, once filled with engine sounds and late-night fixing, Gruziland, began to settle. Engine Assat, cold, and Sharon Osbourne, always step protector, made a decision that broke a heart. She began selling off his car collection. She explained it simply. Hadn't need them anymore. He didn't drive. He wasn't getting better. But fans knew it wasn't just about buying practical. The cars had become reminders of better times, of mistakes, of old habits that might come back. And when Ozzy had a severe relapse during a particularly dark time in the mid-2000s, Sharon sold near Liege. Gone was the Rolls, gone waste Ferrari. Even the Aston Martin V8, the one Ozzy said, felt like a rocket ship, was sold without any big announcement. Ozzy reportedly begged her to keep two. Check 1. The decision caused questioning. In interviews, Sharon defended it as survival. Ozzy, on the other hand, never mentioned Ned's garage again. But those close to him said he often wandered in late at night just to sit in the one remaining car in salons. That garage became a graveyard of memories. Locked away, lights off, no porters, no visitors. It was no longer a collection. It was a sad room waiting for a man who was still fighting to stay alive. When Ozzy's family finally went back into the garage after his death, they didn't expect to find anything more ethon, cold steel, and old oil stains. Buttocked behind glove boxes, taped under sun visors, and hidden in center consoles were handwritten notes. Some decades old, others clearly recent. Each one offered a look into Ozzy's soul, a mind. Often misunderstood by tabloids and fans alike. Some notes were simple, reminders to fix a part or change oil, but others much heavier. One found taped inside the glove box of his old Rolls-Royce read, "This car got me through the worst tour of my life. I didn't remember most of it, but I remember the seat." Another written on the back of a song list was addressed to Sharon. "Don't sell this one, please. It's got too much of me in it." Another heartbreaking message, written a wrinkled receipt simply said, "Fighty, don't let them clean this out." Even more interesting was a bundle of song words stuffed into a Bentley's door pocket. Untitled, unrecorded, raw. Some for sessioned at guilt, addiction, and survival. But one line stood out. "Engines are louder than demons, but never louder than silence." Ozzy had always fought with the quiet, and in these notes, the quiet finale spoke back. Jack Osbourne later said, "We didn't just find cars in that garage, were found. Pieces of him we didn't know where are still here. The family, moved to tears, decided not to sell those cars. They remained untouched." Notes kept exactly where Ozzy left them, as if Hemi returned, tucked in the farthest corner of Thegridge. Buried beneath dust covers and time itself, sat a 1969 Lincoln Continental. Most people had forgotten it existed. Some never knew he owned one. But Ozzy never spoke of it, not in interviews, not in books, not even to close friends in his later years. The family believed it was long gone, but there it was, unmoved for over 2 decades. It's just story haunting. According to insider San friends, this Lincoln was the car Ozzy drove during the darkest chapter of his life, the early 1990s, when addiction nearly ate him up and his marriage nearly ended. Multiple sources claim It was the same car used the night Oz was taken to the hospital for a room rediverdos. Police reports from that time mention a black Lincoln registered in his name found outside the scene. Ozzy never sold it, never drove it again. He just parquetted, covered it, and never allowed any Annetto touch it. When Sharon found it again after his death, she reportedly stewed frozen. The keys were still in the ignition. A pack of cigarettes lay on the passenger seat, fallen apart with time. The odometer hadn't moved since a thought-awful week in 93.1 note was found in the glove box reading. This one don't drive anymore, and neither do I. They debated with or tow, keep it, or crush it. In the end, they sealed it back under a fresh cover. Not as a car, but as a tombstone. A reminder of survival. A painful reminder of just how close the Prince of Darkness came to never seeing the light again. Unlike most celebrities with car collections, Ozzy never bragged. No flashy social media garage tours, no magazine pictures, no Jay Leno's Garage episodes. For a man we've lived so loudly on stage, he kept his wheels and what they represented painfully quiet. And that silence said more than any showroom ever could. Ozzy's garage wasn't about horsepower or showing off rare imports. It was a boot mori. Each car was a mile marker in a life filled with detours. Rolls-Royce Phantom marked a year of success and a near-death experience. A Nesbite, owning cars that would make collectors drool. Ozzy refused to let dealers or media in. When asked once, why didn't show off the collection, his answer was short. It's not for them, it's for me. Sharon added that he would often sit in one-offed cars during bad days, windows up, radio off, just thinking. There wasn't a need for proving himself, no need to impress. His garage wasn't a show-off. It was a sanctuary, a skirmind. Man, flawed, fragile, trying to hold on to pieces of himself in a world that never stopped demanding more for fans and family alike. Realizing that, after decades of public madness, Ozzy's truest self lived in silence. Surrounded by steel, rubber, and memory, was as beautiful as it was heartbreaking. In the final weeks of Ozzy's life, as his health got worse and the world got ready for the inevitable, Sharon Osbourne began working quietly behind the scenes. While others focused on hospital visits and legacy projects, she focused on something far more personal, reuniting Ozzy with the car she had once loved and lost. To stood out in particular, his blacked-out Range Rover, the one he'd driven during calmer years. In the English countryside, and a 1970 Aston Martin V8. It's the same model once called the only thing that ever outran my demons. Both had been sold during a dark chapter when Sharon sold much of his collection, desperate to save him from himself. At the time, Ozzy hadn't understood, but he never forgot. With help from friends in the collector world, Sharon managed to track down the exact cars. Not copies, not similar models, the same VINs, same wear, same history. The Aston Martin had been sitting in a California garage, untouched for years. The Range Rover had changed hands 3 times, but remained surprisingly well kept. When they arrived back at the Osbourne house, Ozzy was too weak to drive, but he insisted seeing them. Family members will deem into the garage. The second he saw Aston, tears reportedly welled up. He didn't speak, just reached out and touched the hood. Sharon whispered, "I brought them home." Later, he asked Tazat inside the Rover one last time. With help, he climbed in. The door closed, and for 15 quiet minutes, he sat alone. That moment wasn't about horsepower. It wasn't about fame. It was about closure. Sharon gave Ozzy the one gift few Starseever get, a chance to come full circle with the pieces of himself he thought were gone forever. News of Ozzy Osbourne's death on July 22, 2025, spread like wildfire. But unlike the media, craziness surrounding most celebrity deaths, something unusual happened outside the Osbourne house in Hancock Park, Los Angeles. Fans didn't come with signs or chants. They came in silence by sundown that day. Ozzy's gated driveway became a makeshift memorial, but rather than piling near the front door or the gate itself, the tributes all seemed to move toward one place, the garage. Somehow the world had learned that this place, the quiet haven where Ozzy spent hours thinking, fixing, remembering, was where he'd last found peace. It wasn't the stage or the studio. was the place where the Prince of Darkness had become just Ozzy, the man behind the myth. Flowers lineth. Bottom of the garage door, candles flickered along the driveway. Fans left handwritten notes on car posters, record sleeves, and engine parts. One letter wrapped in an old Black Sabbath t-shirt. Thanks for the soundtrack of my life and for showing us even legends are a human. Another note placed under the windshield wiper of the returned Aston Martin simply said, "You made noise, fourth world. Now rest in silence." Jack Osbourne took to Instagram to post a feed of the scene. Dad would have hated the fuss, but loved the love. The family didn't ask fans to leave. They didn't eat. By the third night, even strangers who weren't hardcore rock fans showed up, drawn not by fame, but by something deeper, something human. In Thought Garage, Ozzy's story had come tourist, and outside it, the world finally endorsed him. For decades, Ozzy Osbourne played the part of the madman, the wild-eyed showman, the untouchable rock god who bit the heads off bats and broke every rule in music and in life. But the truth, hiding in his garage, tells a very different story. Behind the amplifiers and stage lights was a Monwo loved quietly, remembered deeply, and never stopped trying to outrun histamines. The cars he collected weren't just trophies of success. They were time capsules, each tied to a tour, a loss, a moment of clarity, or a spiral in two shows. Some brought him joy, others carried scars. All of them, in their own way, helped him survive. Chords weren't just machines. There were notes no one had ever read. Glove boxes filled with scribbled song words. Windshields still smudged from Hishans. Mirror of the man the world never really saw. Not Ozzy the icon, but Ozzy the husband, the father, the soul searching for silence in the roar of an engine. He never needed the world to understand him. But in the end, his garage, sealed away from cameras, and Chow's told the story for him. A story of redemption, a story of regret. A story of a man who wasn't just the Prince of Darkness, but a flawed, brilliant survivor who left behind something more than albums and headlines. He left behind truth-tucked, between spark plugs and seatbelts. And now that the door is open, we finally see him, not the legend, the man. And somehow that's even